Hello, and thank you for calling the Higher Self Hotline, your direct line to the divine. You've been led here by your inner knowing, and you've arrived right on cue. I'm your host, Zoe Greco, and together we'll make the ethereal earthly, helping you consciously embody your spiritual knowing and most authentic self. Please listen carefully to the following options. To discover how to fulfill your soul's purpose, press 1. To unlock infinite abundance in life, love, and career, press 2. To heal your mind, body, and spirit, press 3. To speak with your personal spirit guides, press 0. Please hold while we connect you to your highest timeline. Hello, Divine Darlings, and welcome back to the Higher Self Hotline. I'm your host, Zoe Greco. Thank you so much for joining me today. And today's episode is one that I am so incredibly thrilled and honored to bring to you. Today's guest is someone that I truly have been a fan and admirer of for quite some time. And as you guys know, it's of particular importance to me to bring people onto the show that I feel genuine resonance with, because the field that we create here, the conscious collective that exists in our community, holds such a strong vibration and frequency. And whenever I find someone that can add to the potency of that frequency through resonance, it is someone that I know needs to be brought to your attention. And if you don't already know this person, I would be quite utterly shocked. But today we are joined by the one, the only, Ayesha Ophelia. Ayesha Ophelia is a maker of portals, provocations, and possibilities. She's the founder of Humanities, an unlearning portal for those who sense that there's more, which I know there are a lot of you out there who do. It's part classroom, part altar. It's a space where seekers gather to take and teach transformative classes. Ayesha, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Zoe. This is going to be fun.
Oh, you're going to have a blast. I would love to begin by understanding a little bit more about your journey. How did you end up in this current iteration and expression of your purpose? I've watched quite a few podcasts with you as a guest, so I feel like I know a little bit about your story, but I've also enjoyed that it's kind of like there's more details that are revealed each time you tell it. So I'm so excited to hear what details are resonant for you to share today.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for the intro, and thank you just for the beauty. Like, your set is dripping in beauty. It feels so inspiring. So my heart is just a flutter today. Great question. I was looking around my office space, and I think your people will be able to see this. I saw this card and I was like, you know what? I really got here by being myself. And it could also be like, the tagline could be like, from introvert to ambivert, because so much of what I'm doing now is very, very unlikely for who I was in the past. So it really just goes to show that you can really like bloom into what your purpose is. And so for me, that really started with creativity. And it felt like it was always the underlying moment, if you will. It's so much about mysticism and spirituality and how we got here and what we're supposed to be doing, and sort of in the Oprah of it all, like living your best life, how we actually do that in this time. So I've followed breadcrumbs. I've worked for amazing people who have been like, you can't work for me anymore. You need to be out front sharing your message about creativity, about passion, about being yourself. And mostly because about 10 or 11 years ago, I started a little Instagram portal, if you will, and just started sharing. And then the people that began showing up were friends and allies and people's books who I've read, and famous people. And like, I just have been amazed that this has been such a mouthpiece for what I'm here to share. It's opened up so many doors. And so I really just started sharing to like no one at first. And if you've listened to my story, then my mom's death was a big part of it. And when I started that, I used to be called the Girlfriend Manifesto. And when I started the Girlfriend Manifesto space over 12 years ago, she was alive and she was rooting me on. And after she passed, I really got this like technicolor sense of like the clock, kind of like, yes, depending on your belief system, you're immortal. You've done this a lot of times. You have past lives, all the things. But this is your time as Ayesha. What are you doing with it? And it really set me out on a grand adventure of listening to myself, of following my heart, of quitting jobs, of leaving relationships, of, just following that thread and winding up. I don't know, kind of like my little girl is just so pleased, by being with you. Like, this is such a creative space. But yeah, I mean, I guess I've just teased out a lot of different things, but I really just have been myself the whole time, have really listened to my heart, have followed those breadcrumbs, even when I'm like, I don't know what this means. I'm doing something that is illogical in some sense, but somewhere inside of me, it makes sense. And, creativity really being like the secret sauce that everything is baked in.
That's something that I'm currently really understanding is the importance of the reclamation of my inner artist, and how artistry and creativity and intuition are so inextricably tied together. Like they need one another in order to function. If you think about it, like creative energy is intuition made material. It's like the material manifestation of your inner guidance. And I just have to say that as I was listening to you, first of all, like the way you speak is slam poetry. Like every word you say, I was like, oh, I was taking it into my body. I was feeling it on like a deep level physically. And the question that really came to me that I would love to understand is, how did you not only live through your authentic self, like find the will in a world that constantly pushes against it, but how did you find the ability to preserve that self? Because I've had this conversation a lot recently, especially with the clients who are new mothers, who are like, they want to protect their child and they're so focused on protection. And I've been reframing that as like preservation, like versus trying to protect your child from the world. Like, how do you help your child preserve their authentic being? And it sounds like that's really what you've been working on, is like preserving your authentic being and then expressing that authentic being. And I have to say that that's not a skill that comes easily based on the world that we live in and the influences that constantly push against that process. But also, even when people are aware that that's what they need to do, they really struggle to do it. So I'd love to understand, even if that has been an innate process for you and more of a visceral experience, how you've navigated that process and any insight you can give people who are in their own process of self-exploration, reclamation, and expression.
Yes. Okay, you just brought in an R word, because when you were speaking about parents, what I really think, I'm not a parent yet, but I really feel like the gift that my parents gave me above anything was resiliency. It wasn't like, let me bubble wrap this kid and put her out there. It's like, actually, how can you be resilient in a lot of different places? And so you said the word revelation, and I really feel like what we're talking about is how we reveal ourselves slowly over time. Because let's face it, we've all worn masks, we've all contorted ourselves, we've all taken shapes that don't feel like who we are. But those can only last for a time, and eventually you have to break out and reveal more and distill. And so that's what I really feel like I was able to do, is like, even the places where I got comfortable, like this is part of the big move from Tennessee to Texas, was that I felt like I had grown to the edge of my pot. Like, okay, yes, I've grown, but I need a bigger container. I need to be out more. And so that move really made me have to reveal more of who I am, had to start over with people, have to have this great blank slate. So I really think about it as a tolerance for resiliency and the ability to just keep refining who you are. Like that's actually the natural process of evolution, is we come into this world as these sweet little babes with just like open hearts and big wide eyes. And then the world says, no, don't do that, or do it like this, or wear that, or women do this, or Black people do this, or da 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 da. The list goes on and on and on and on, right? And eventually we have to say, well, we start asking questions. Well, who made these rules? Where did they come from? This is what sent me on my spiritual journey. And it was less about adding things and more about, oh, let me take off this false self. Let me take off that false self. And I'm still very much in the process of revealing, because the truth is, like, there's so much creativity, so much energy that emanates from us the whole entire time we're here, even when we're 70. My dad's in his 70s now, and I'm like, Dad, you can do anything you want. You can literally get the body that you had in your 50s if you're willing to like really push against the forces of entropy. Like that's, they're natural, they're there, right? But when you stand upright, when you say, here I am, you're pushing against them until it's time for you to transform. So for me, it's been more this like slow reveal. And it's, I think, if you're into astrology, I have a lot of planets in Scorpio 4. So my whole life has been about transmutation, really, like big transformations. It's like, and I think as women, we do this. It's like who you were 7 years ago. You're like, who was that woman? That was, bless her.
I don't know that bitch.
Exactly. And like, I would love on every aspect of myself, even the one who felt like she was stuck, even the one who was making massive compromises because she got me here. So it's just been this like slow, gentle, sometimes very hard, sticky, icky, weird reveal. And I just think the older you get, the less fucks you give about the wrong things and the more good fucks you give.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's so many beautiful nuggets in that answer that resonated with me so strongly. I've been really talking to people recently about how being your most authentic self requires you to take off your suit of armor. Mm-hmm. And I've been using this like metaphor about like you can't put a beautiful gown over a suit of armor and expect it to fit. It's not going to fit. But when you take off that armor and you put that gown on, it hugs all those curves and it paints you in like this beautiful, it illuminates you, it highlights you. And so when you were talking about how like you can't put things on until you're willing to take some things off, I resonate so strongly with that. And the other thing that I think is, literally, I viscerally agree down to my tippy toes with every word you said, but you said something really important about how the process of revelation and like revealing is pretty much lifelong. And I think this is really important because so many people come to the work that we do looking for that breakthrough. And I myself, like in the past, was really looking for the breakthrough. I felt like I was facing a glass wall that I couldn't get through. And I could see my more realized self and my more realized life on the other side of it, but I just couldn't figure out how to get through it. And I think when we come to the understanding that revealing our truth is a process that happens over the course of our lifetimes because we continue to evolve and learn and grow and exist and become all the time, that journey takes more depth and more meaning, and also is depressurized because we understand that it's not one major breakthrough, but rather a progression of becoming forever. And I'm curious if you have deeper thoughts or reflections on that.
Yeah, I love what you said. And what it really made me think of was like that actually incremental ends up being monumental, right? It's like we want to break down the door and we want to be there right freaking now. And that's not really the way life works. It's like an overnight success. This is a good example. An overnight success isn't just an overnight success. It's probably someone that's been returning day in and day out for a very long time when suddenly it starts to pop. And for some people that may seem quicker. For others, we all have like, we would do ourselves such a justice to just be like, oh, well, this is my path. This is what my body's ready for. This is where I'm at. And I'm feeling inspired by what they're doing, but no one's walked in the shoes I've walked in. And I have to remind myself that a lot because I'm like, oh, well, they're around my age or whatever, and they have this and I don't have this. Like, how come? And it's like, life will answer your questions. I was thinking about this morning. Your subconscious loves a question. And so when we ask empowering questions, we get uplifted answers. When we ask questions like, why me? Then we just stay down in the dregs with like this endless loop, right, of things. And so I kind of lost my train of thought, but yeah.
No, babe, you're on the train. Like you're on the super train, the bullet train, babe. Wow.
Oh yeah, it's about
unreal.
About not, about the small incremental changes that really take us from that caterpillar state into the butterfly and then back again, right? you get your wings at some point, you're soaring, you're flying, you might take a beat, you might take a rest, but then we often go back to that caterpillar stage. It's that beginner's mind. And that's really what mastery is. It's being willing to be done and undone on a regular basis by what we love. If we say we love it, it's going to undo us, and we're going to get restitched back together in a new shape, in a new vessel.
Oh my God. I want to take you and shrink you down and put you in my brain, like the level of resonance. And this is it. Like there have also been things creatively, just like to mention this, there have been things creatively that I've seen you do that I was in the process of making. And I was like, oh, well, like she just did it. And not in a comparison way, or like there's not room for both of us, but it's like, you know what one of them was specifically was the messages on like coquette cakes. When you came out with that, I was like, holy shit, my team was literally making coquette cake, like there's just been so many points of resonance. And, you know, I also find myself falling into the trap of comparison. Like there's definitely spaces and times, like for instance, like everyone's doing their Spotify Wrapped right now for their podcast. And I'm like, oh, I didn't get those same like accolades and like, you know, medals that Spotify gave to other people in my field that are my friends, you know? And it's so hard not in the container that we have, it's so hard not to fall into that comparison. But when you can support yourself in taking a step out of it and instead choose to exist collaboratively and to choose to like be a megaphone for someone else and allow the resonance to build the magnitude of the message out into the world. I think that's the point of it, right? Is like, I'm trying not to be so attached to like my mouth being the mouth through which it comes, but instead being so focused on the fact that like the collective receives the message, as long as I'm still in a place of creativity for myself and like allowing myself to explore my creative edges. And I think that something you said is so incredibly important, because I find that the comparison gets louder as I return to the caterpillar state. So for instance, like my business existed for 10 years. And in the last 2 of those years, I felt this deep innate pull to restart and become something, go back into the stage of cocooning. And so that I could emerge as the next layer and the next iteration. And you and I both have programs where we support people in that caterpillar process. We use the same methodology, which is how I was like, oh, we need to have a conversation. And I think the fact that you are willing to be honest about the fact that that journey is like very cyclical and perhaps repetitive in its arc, but not in its, manifestation. Like, yes, we can return to the caterpillar, but we are still returning and cycling with the energy that we have brought into, that journey from the one we just took. So it's like being reincarnated in one lifetime, like a multitude of times.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's very much like the Russian dolls. That's the image that I get. And something, it's like, here, I'm going to lean in so everyone can hear me when I say this. Everyone, even the people you look up to, like super mega celebrities, they're all just making it up. They just have a team that says, oh, you made that up. All right, we're going to go make it happen. So like, I try to just like, whenever those times happen, have compassion with yourself. Let yourself have a little fit. To me, to be in my space, like perfection is not required, right? We just have to have compassion with ourselves when we're in those spaces. And then we have to have things that help bring us out, because to stay in that stagnation for too long is, it just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to continually compare yourself. It feels better to be like, oh, okay. I'm like, if you allow yourself to feel it, it doesn't have that same grip on you. If you're judging yourself for feeling it, then that's a reason that we really do stay bound. So I just let myself have my little tantrum. And then I'm like, all right, now how do I create myself out of this bind, right? That's like the question I ask myself all the time.
I think there's a real importance in going into those spaces of being with the pain, because I always say that intuition gives you the vision of the destination, like where you're going, but your ego lets you know what is in the way, like where you're still feeling restricted and constricted and confused, or, holding pain that is limiting to you or beliefs that are limiting. And to be honest, everyone's so stoked on their intuition and so damning of their ego. But in reality, they need each other to move you forward. And you need both of them in order to progress. So everything you're saying is just in profound resonance. And there's a point that I'm interested to explore with you. Just thinking about, humanities. And I know you plan like adult field trips. You're very creative and childlike in the work that you do in such intentional ways. And I'm really, like, as I'm listening to you, hearing a lot of your own inner child informing your journey. And so I'd love to hear more about humanities and all of the ways that you allow your inner child to be a source of inspiration in the work that you do and the way that you help people move through the world.
Oh, such a good question. Well, when you think about, well, at least for me, when I think about a lot of really simple wisdom, I'll like ask my niece, she's older now, but when she was younger, I would ask her about something that felt really adult and complex. Well, what do I do? And she would just bring me back to these really simple like tenets and ways of living life around love, around appreciation, around forgiveness. And it's like, oh, wow, I literally just overcomplicated this whole thing. And there's something amazing about play. When we're in a form of play, we actually can learn more, grow faster, heal quicker. And so there is this childlike part of ourselves that we always carry, right? We're all like, we understand like lineage work now. We understand our inner children. We understand helping them to grow up and feel whole. Otherwise, we grow with time and age, but we don't really bring that wisdom along with us. So having my inner child along for the ride has been just monumental. It's made me more money. It's done all the things. And so Humanities really was birthed because I had been online for quite some time and I was doing all these things that felt really powerful, but they were kind of one-off. I was like, all right, I'm going through grief. I'm going to do a grief group. I'm really focusing on calling in my partner. So I'm going to ask women to come along for the journey. And every time I would do it, there would be amazing, incredible results. But then it was just like, poof, I wasn't really like thinking business wise. I just was kind of like, how do I not get by, but something like that. And so I really started feeling into legacy the last couple of years because I've been on this real journey. If anyone's into Gene Keys 29, I have a Gene Keys period. So like it's kind of like human design. It's human design, the I Ching, and astrology. So I really started to see like, oh, Gene Key 29 is about the journey from half-heartedness to commitment to devotion. And then devotion really made me start thinking about like, well, what am I building? And like, how am I housing it? And I'm like, oh, you're a forever student. You've been writing down this word humanities for about 6 years. Spirit had been talking to me. Does that ever happen? Even with vessel, we can get into that later. But this word had been coming up over and over and over again. And then I started looking into it, and the humanities are typically the first things to get cut. They're music, they're art, they're the languages of the soul, things that really make our existence worth living, right? And I thought, okay, well, what if I create a platform? I create this school. It's going to house all of my creations so people can return to them again and again. Smart business move. And it feels good. I love like cataloging things. Like I probably like worked in the Akashic records because if you could just see, I'll show you my office after, but there's like herbs all cataloged and written on, and there's all the things that I love. And so, yeah, I really was like, I want to involve community because I want it to be more than just about me. And next year, we're going to get into streaming content. So there's a lot of amazing things planned, but the humanities really are like, how do we fuse our soulful selves with our human selves and learn skills and things that we need on this plane? So things from creativity to business to planning. There's so many things that are a part of humanities. But it was, for me, a way to not have to relegate a part of my experience. Oh, the soulful part can't come to work because there's no crying at work, apparently. Or, it's like, oh, I get to be a whole person in the space of the humanities. And then I get to offer that gift to other people.
You said something that I think is so invaluable. As a creative person, I don't think we usually automatically are inclined to think about legacy or like how to let something live beyond its initial inception. And I use this metaphor often of like a painter. A painter paints a painting and they don't want to paint the same painting forever. They want to paint a beautiful masterpiece and enjoy the creative process and enjoy admiring it when it's done, and maybe get some other people to come look at it and go, wow, what a great painting. And then they're ready to move on to the next creative pursuit. But for those of us who are here to change the world, we can't just think of those things as, you know, fleeting and temporary. We do have to create some sort of legacy underneath them. And it's not, again, it's not like an innate skill set for a creative person to think in those terms. So the fact that you found your way into that business mind is, I think, a beautiful testament. And I think it's also important for people out there to hear that it's okay for you to start imperfectly. It's okay for you to take steps and take missteps and wish you had captured a part of your process or done something differently. The point is that you do it. And eventually, when your capacity is expanded enough and your skill set and your support system is expanded to the level that you can do it differently and think of it differently, then you get to. But I think what you're talking about is so invaluable, not just in like, obviously the profound approach of helping people connect to their own humanity, as well as the humanities and the arts that are so often neglected and defunded and deprioritized, but also your own iterations and you know, expansion as a leader and as an entrepreneur through that journey, I think is also something to highlight. And that's the thing that I really admire. I have been around since the Girlfriend Manifesto days. Like, I've been an OG. And so that's another thing that I'm actually excited to ask you about and discuss, because I recently, you would have no way of knowing this, but over the last 2 years, I stopped operating under a pseudonym, the Mermaid Hippie Gypsy. And I began identifying under my own name, and like my whole everything changed. My longtime followers and friends would be like, girl, I've seen you try on 25 costumes, do 25 different costume changes until I landed right here. And so I'm curious if you can talk about what your journey was like in the ownership of your identity versus sitting behind perhaps like the Girlfriend Manifesto, because I think we've always known that Ayesha was there doing that work, but there is a certain power in like putting your name front and center and like occupying who you came here to be in this lifetime. So I'm curious if there was anything deeper in that process of transformation for you personally.
I love that. Yeah, it was almost just like a natural evolution, but there was like a very, there was a, you know, when there's a moment in time where you're like, okay, this thing, it was before this thing and then after this thing. And I meet a lot of people through being online, right? Because I'm, you know, even though I'm an introvert and I kind of will be like, oh, peopling, I actually really love people. I feel really inspired by people. And so this woman had offered me a reading, and I was like, okay, I'll do this reading. We had a couple nice conversations, and she ended up being really kooky, but on point. All right. And so also kind of long-winded. And I told her this, it's like, it's all good. She knows this. And so it was a very long, winding, about an hour. And then finally she was like, you need to change from the Girlfriend Manifesto to your name. Just like really matter of fact. And my first inclination was like bristly, because, you know, a few people had told me like, okay, you need to be more in the feed. Like, yes, you're creative, you're inspirational, people are coming, but there's some ownership that needs to happen. And I think this is just kind of the natural evolution. It's so interesting because it's such a different game now. Like, there's all these like faceless Instagrams and people don't know who the person is. But I think if you want to build community, you want to build trust, and you want to work with people in a certain way, you really need to be a part of the energy of your page. And so after my first inclination was to feel bristly, I was like, oh, there's something there. And I was like, if my name's available, I'll immediately change it. And I didn't think twice about it. I literally just did it that same night, probably like an hour later. And it really does feel like it marked a moment in time where I went from viewing what I was doing more as like passive. I don't want to call it a hobby, but I wasn't really treating it like, oh, this is like this really important part of my life. And so, yeah, it just made this big shift, and I took ownership, and so much changed when I did that.
So first of all, I just want to say I identify with that so strongly. My moment was quite similar. My listeners are probably like, Zoe, shut the fuck up. We've heard the story 1,000 times. But for you who've never heard it, basically I was on a team meeting with my team, and it literally just came into my consciousness. And I said, do you guys think I should rebrand? And everyone was like, yeah, girl, like, yeah, it's time. And I was like almost a little hurt. I was like, ow, like I thought my brand was cute. And I viewed it as a rebrand at first. And it's become a whole identity shift and like reclamation of personhood and identity. And I realized that when you operate under your own name, what you spoke to, that idea of ownership, is really profound. There's this embodiment of ownership, because being the Merhipsy, I was living a version of my calling that I thought would be more acceptable and, palatable. But in reality, I didn't come here to be the Merhipsy. I came here to be Zoe. And I came here to do what only Zoe can do. And so in order to do that, I have to be Zoe. I have to live through her, and I have to claim her. And so the past 2 years have been about me like claiming Zoe, and she's a fucking drama queen. Like she built herself a stage, like a crystal chandelier stage, and period. Like that's who she is. So hearing you describe that same process as being like kind of just a moment in time where it's like, oh, I guess this is supposed to happen, feels very resonant with me. And yet the magnitude of what is underneath it that you also talked about is also deeply resonant with me. So I love to hear that.
It's like more of that reveal, right? And I also love the idea that you get to try on all these different parts of yourself. And one of the things that I really lean into is archetype work. And it's trying on masks to actually bring more of who you are out further, right? And we do that for a while. We do that. And we even we ham up certain parts of our personality, because at least for me, who really could just sit at home being uber creative and kind of hide behind the scenes, it's like, okay, well, what's going to get me out? What's going to get me out front? Because no one can share my message like I can. No one. And so it's the work for me to be in my visibility in a way that feels good. And so whatever like archetype that needs to be for you to stand out front, I say go for it. But I just think there is this natural time when you're like, oh, it's how in every fucking rom-com, before the woman meets the man, whatever, she like went off to the big city and she did it. And then she's like, I got to go back to my roots. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's like that. Yes. It's like that archetypal journey of reclaiming something. And so now, it's Ayesha Ophelia.
Yeah. Oh, it's Ayesha Ophelia. That was one of the reasons I wanted to ask about your inner child, because the more that I become myself, the more that I am revealing to myself, the more I quite literally look like I did when I was 3 years old. Like, this was my dream outfit when I was 3 years old. Like, I had the same haircut when I was 3 years old. Like, I've been this bitch since day one. I just took a little detour and like forgot who she was for a second and then came back to it. And so I just thought that was a beautiful shared thread once again. That's like, yeah, it's when you speak to that, it feels so significant. I also got very tearful when you talked about consulting your niece as like a spiritual guide. I'm also not a mother. I don't actually have plans to be. We've changed our minds a lot over the years, and we've kind of landed there. And to like the idea of having like this little being that can guide you through the wisdom, that innate wisdom, like just really, it really got me choked up there for a second. So I want to pivot for a moment to talk about vessel, because that was actually the reason that I decided to initiate this conversation. And I want to just be so fucking for real. Like, I want to just lay it out here for a second and say, I've been a fan of yours forever. And again, the algorithm just was not serving it to me. And I think that's really important, actually, because I don't know if it had, if I would have pursued my own version of that, because I would have been like, oh, well, Aisha's doing it. Like, I don't want to step on anyone's toes or like be, a copy or whatever. But as soon as it did, I felt this like moment of it just moving through me as I was reading the copy and like taking in this offering. And that was when I was brave enough to actually reach out to you, like DM you personally, because I think I was like intimidated, to be completely honest. Like, and not because you exude an intimidating nature. That has everything to do with like my own perception of myself being like a little fish. And I'm so glad that we initiated this conversation and we're here to talk about this, because the work that we're about to discuss, in my opinion, is the deepest work you can do in this life. Personally, is my belief at this moment. 34 years old, call me crazy. But I really think that the point of life is to add our own neural pathway to the collective consciousness through the embodiment of our own authentic expression. Like, that is what I think is our responsibility. We're here to let collective consciousness expand its knowledge of itself, and we can only do that by following our most unique path. And so I would love to talk about vessel, because it quite literally, the caterpillar's journey is exactly what my program You Already Are is modeled after. And I would love to understand how this offering came forth for you and how it became this kind of like central offer in what you're doing and what you're bringing to the world. Like, how did you land on that like metamorphic path as your foundation and motivation for that? Like, take us into the journey of building Vessel, and tell us a little bit too at what it is, if you wouldn't mind.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for making your creations. It's like, people need to hear it in exactly the way you're going to say it, and people need to hear it in exactly the way anyone else is going to say it. And really, it's like we're all pulling on similar threads. It's what the creative field is. And, to feel I don't know. Yeah, we can get into the whole everyone's doing it thing.
Yes.
Space, but
yes.
Vessel really is. It feels like a distillation. It feels like a lot of the things we had been talking about. It really is how we tap back into that original design. So just how you were saying, like, I literally have the same haircut. I'm wearing the clothes. It's like there is like, in the journey of the caterpillar, even like using an acorn as an example, there you are blueprinted. You are blueprinted with the same intelligence of all the things that we are in awe about. Like, how does nature know how to become so beautiful? How does nature know when to shed? How does nature know when to die? It's like we have this innate thing within our vessels. And so vessel for me is like, it starts off with the soma, it starts off with the soul, and then it moves into structure and strategy. And it's really about how we live in our body and how we slow down enough to hear what's authentically ours, and not like, oh, it's so easy to parrot. It really is. And for a while, we kind of all do that. We try on different things until we learn how to sing our authentic note. And so for me, this whole conversation, it's about authenticity, it's about original design, and it's about giving yourself enough time to be in that rhythmic, cyclical undoing of old ideas so you really can create what's true for you. And so there's people here that are going to write a book. There's people here that are literally just healing so they can become mothers. And I'm guiding them through this process that I've been guiding myself through for a long time. And then specifically, the community aspect has come online really, really deeply for me, because I've been like this introvert, like just doing my thing. And I think part of the reason, if you have a big dream, you have a big vision, you have a big goal, and you're trying to lone wolf it, that's part of the reason that you can't even fathom how it could be true, because all of the dreams that we hold, they're connected to other people. They're woven through other people. And sometimes it's literally just being around someone that's an expander, that Michelangelo effect. Sometimes it's literally being in community with people who are working through their own shadow to get their things into the world. And so for 2 years, I was in this artist collective, and we went through our own type of journey. And I was like, you know what? I've been working in groups for years, and I actually really, I kind of love it more, because there's this thing about, and so Vessel, you get one-on-one time with me, but there's also the beauty and the alchemy of groups, right? You get this hall of mirrors. And sometimes someone's sharing something and like your shadow really comes out hard, or sometimes someone's sharing something and there's just like deep love and appreciation. But when I think of alchemy, I think of like also the ants, like how the ants end up all working together. And so Vessel is 9 months. It's for a group of 12 women, and we're gathering now. And I'm already seeing this like crazy constellation of like, oh, I love how this is going to work, the energies that are going to be in the space. But for me, it's really about getting back to your original blueprint and letting that shine through. And so many of us are like in a big hustle, in a big whatever. We don't have support. And so I love it. I love seeing people's creative manifestations come from nothing and then take shape and take form. And then just like with the word vessel, it's one of those things where it's like, it's so, I have so many different types of vessels. It's one of the oldest archetypes, like the star card of this woman who's overflowing and is pouring into other people. It's like, that's what the last 12 years has given me. It's like, my cup is so full. People want to give me their clothes and dress me, and people want to send me their, because of how much I've given online. And I'm like, I want to give back and I want to gather with women. And so Vessel was born. And really like I'll shut it in a second, but like okay, so it's not,
no, please.
It's not the journey of the butterfly, although we love the chrysalis. And I even use those words because people know them so much, but it's actually the journey of the moth. And it's like the cocoon, actually. And moths spin silk, right? They spin their own house, which they'll have to deconstruct down to those imaginal cells. And eventually they'll have to break out of that vessel to come into the world.
Yes.
And so it's a lot about shadow work, because that's where all the energy for your creation lives, actually. Like, yes, it's in your solar plexus, but a lot of it's bound in these old stories. And the more that we sit with our soma and we move our bodies in certain ways and we play with archetypes in our dreams, the natural blueprint, the natural design, the natural creative genius that's literally in every single person gets to come front stage. And when that happens, you have a magnetism with what you are, with who you are and what you are and what you want to create. And so really for me, it's like, how do I create the conditions for what's natural, what's God-given, what's universe-given, whatever word you want to use, to come out of us? And that's what vessel is. It's those right conditions.
Okay, first of all, I literally could get off on you talking, so please never stop. It's like, it's just too good. The other thing I find fascinating is we both chose 9 months for our program length. And to me, it makes perfect sense because that's how long it takes to make a human. And if you think about it, the cocoon is both the tomb and the womb, because you enter it and the caterpillar does not come out. Like the caterpillar, the existence of the caterpillar ends in that space, but the butterfly is built on those imaginal cells. And the idea that on a cellular level, the butterfly already is the caterpillar. My program's called You Already Are, because I want people to understand that they already are the person that they imagine themselves to be, that version of them that's pulling them forward, that's asking them to be expressed, to be seen, to be heard, to be known to themselves, and then out into the world. And you talked about something so important, which is creating the conditions in that space to provide the safety for people to move through that process, because they exist in the world which constantly pushes back against that process, constantly and continuously. Everything in life is pointing you in the direction of opposition toward your truth. And to be able to hold space to say, this is where we literally sow the seeds of your truth and watch them unfurl into fullness. And we reap them, and you get to hold your flowers. Like, it is such a beautiful process of becoming. But what you're talking about as the leader of that space is extremely significant, because we cannot ask people, A, to do something that we don't understand, but B, to do something without safety and without protection and care.
Yeah.
And what I really see in you and identify and really feel in resonance with is this thing that you talked about already, of like the process of revelation being pretty much lifelong. Because as you allow yourself to expand, it means that you constantly become a larger container for those that you are here to serve and care for. And so your vessel, the vessel that you are to others, consistently grows, so that it's not like a little goldfish in a fish tank, like in a fish bowl. Like you're holding an ocean for people to expand in their fullness. And someone out there listening, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a scientist, so I might be absolutely fucking like wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure that a goldfish dies because they could grow to be quite large, but the pressure of the water in the bowl pushes against them and kills them from the inside. Yeah. So if you could put a fish in the ocean versus a little bowl, what could they become? Like what could they expand into? And I think that that's more than anything, what I want people to understand about what you're saying is like your commitment to growing your vessel is what allows others to do the same. And the level of responsibility and awareness, and I don't mean responsibility like obligation, I mean responsibility as in care.
Yeah.
Like the level of care and intentionality that you hold in your work is exactly why I wanted to bring you here to have this conversation, because you're right. There's more than enough room for both of us to be doing this work. And I agree with that. I feel that strongly. And I do believe that there will be people listening who have probably resonated with, you already are, but would perhaps resonate even more strongly with your approach and your energy. And I just want them to be where they need to be, where they belong. And so anyone listening, if you're feeling called to work with Ayesha, please do. Like, please do. I mean, I'm sure she's booked and busy, but I would love to invite people to expand into your sphere and your space and know that there is more than enough room for everyone to expand into their fullness.
It's the dog eat dog lack mentality. If they win, I don't win. That is not ours.
Yeah.
It literally is a program from the time we were young, because I really feel this to the core of my being, that there's really no lack. There's a lack of consciousness. And it's not even a lack. It's like we haven't stepped into the consciousness that cares for all of its citizens, right? We're like, well, if that person makes it, then I don't. And this is something that we have to unwind from ourselves to really be an overflow and to really be generous. Because for me, it's like there's room for us all. Like, look at the rainbow. Look at the variety in nature. Look at the amount of, like, when I went on this cocoon chrysalis journey, I was like, okay, how many butterflies are there? And there's so many moths that there's like endless colors, and there's endless shapes of vessels, and there's broken vessels with gold lining them, and there's just so many of things. And so there is no lack. There actually is no lack. And when we're really in that, we can congratulate and we can move on and be about our business and our own genius, because the people that need us will find us.
I'm telling you right now, I would get your words tattooed on my eyelids, on the insides of my eyelids, so I could read them all the time. Like, every word you speak is like nourishment to my being. I'm just I'm in such deep resonance. And if I may, actually, I would love to tell people a little bit about your numerology for a second, because I think it's really informative and indicative of your being. Looking at your numerology, there's 3 numbers that I like to really explore. Your birthday number, which is like your innate gifts and skills. Like, what are the tools in your tool belt in this lifetime? Your attitude number, which is the way that you're perceived by others, but also the approach that you take in life, which is why you're perceived that way. Like, how you do one thing is how you do everything, and people see that. And then your life path number, which is the path you're here to walk in this life. Like, what is your soul here to do? When I pulled your numerology, there was no part of me that was surprised, but 100% of me was delighted, because your life path is a 1. You are literally here to be a leader. You are here to pave new pathways that have not yet been explored. And for you to be able to do so in a way that still honors every other path and just says, this one's mine, come if you want to, is so profound. Now, your birthday number, your innate gifts and skills that are in your tool belt of leadership and guidance for the collective, initiating new things, is a 9. And 9 is the number of the humanitarian. It is the number of wisdom. It's the number of the person who is here to change the world. But there's also 9 is the number of conclusion and ending. So there's a lot of release and a lot of shedding and a lot of loss. So the fact that like your journey was really propelled in a new direction after the loss of your mother makes a lot of sense. But also your own willingness to face the constant shedding and to alchemize that into service makes perfect sense. But more than anything, hold on. She's an attitude number 11, people. She's a master number. 11 is the leader, but it holds the energy of 2, which is the collaborator, the peacemaker, like the partner, the person who builds things behind the scenes. Like 2 doesn't need to be the star of the show. 2 is happy to uplift others and like shine the spotlight on them. So when you said that you shifted your energy from being a background character to people literally being like, Ayesha, no, like you need to be the star. Like that is literally the graduation from 2 energy to 11, like stepping into the mastery of it. And 11 is the visionary. It is the creative artist. It is the person who literally paints that new path. The 1 in you, the life path 1 is like she cuts through the jungle with her machete. But then 11 is how you like paint it and like create a rainbow road that people want to follow and feel like called to pursue. And so I literally couldn't let this conversation like pass us by without saying, people, this is incredible. Like this combination of qualities is so amazing. And 2026 for you is a personal year 3, which is the year of the artist. It's the year of the creative, of celebration, of community. It's lucky. It's the luckiest number in numerology. And it's just about like really continuing to freely paint your path forward so others can see it and experience it. Probably some big old like deals, like a book or something big again is like coming for you. But you've exited in 2025 a year 2, which is all about like collaboration and like building relationships. So like all the relationships that you fostered this year, even the relationships with your audience, are going to be magnified and come back to serve you. Like all the service that you've been pouring into others, 2026 is going to pour that back onto you and into you, which is really beautiful and exciting. I'm curious if there's any part of that is not in resonance for you as you receive it, or any part of it you want to comment on.
No, I knew some of it, but I love hearing it through your words. I didn't know the attitude number. I don't know how you arrive at that, but I need to tell my friends about it. They need to know theirs. It feels deeply resonant. It feels like that I've been tapping into this innate blueprint, the numerology, all of these things that are a part of us that we may not even know. And then we hear them and we're like, oh, that feels so resonant with this year and how much that I've been giving, and then really feeling those seeds. It's like we plant these seeds and they come to harvest at different times, right? And it really does feel like I've been in a continual just like reaping of the beauty that I know that I've put out there. So no, it felt on point. Thank you so much. I loved it. I can't wait to, you know what, this might actually be the first podcast that I listen back to. And I can't listen to myself. I get the cringe. Like for some reason, I can hype myself up on my story.
That's crazy. Sorry. I'm going to interrupt you and say that's bananas because you are so articulate and eloquent and like literally one of the coolest people on the planet. But go on. Keep self-deprecating. No problem.
I don't listen back to myself. And my man's always like, well, how do you know? How do you know you did well? And I'm like, I can just feel it. And like, I've been doing more podcasts in person, which has also stretched my nervous system. And so, I think I'll listen back to this part because I really, I'll send this one out gladly and joyfully.
Well, that makes me so happy. And, one of the reasons I like to share the numerology of the people that come on the show when I have the opportunity to do so is because I want listeners who like spot it and got it. The people that are listening to you that are like, ooh, I want to be an Ayesha. Like, I want to be that. I want them to be able to see if there's resonance between your charts so that they can see if they also possess those qualities or maybe why they're feeling the resonance that they're feeling. And by the way, your attitude number is captured by adding the month and the day of your birthday. So for you, it was, I believe, November 18th, right?
Exactly. 11/18.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yep, exactly. I love to hear it. I know we're beginning to wind down our conversation, but I can't end without asking you about the digital wild. Can you tell us a little bit about the digital wild and how people can experience this offering?
Yes. So it's the next version of algorithm alchemy, and people had been asking me to make a social media something for as long as I've been online. And I think for a while I was like, ew, no, like, how'd you make that? What are you using? Like, and it really started to help me understand that there's a lot of people that want to step into their voice, that have a vision, but are really scared by visibility. And as someone who is pretty much an introvert, I really have slowly over the years broaden my nervous system to allow me to speak and to share and to really be kind of fearless about being online. And of course, there's times where, again, you get stretched even more. Your vessel gets even bigger by what you're doing. And so algorithm alchemy was that. And, Digital Wilds is taking it a little bit further because its focus went from vision, voice, visibility to actually creating something within 90 days. So it's like your wild creation, what is within you. It's some of the same pillars and principles of you are the algorithm. Like originally that was going to be the title of it all, but it's like instead of trying to go for virality, can you step into authenticity? And, I was teaching people some very basics of, some of the software that I use. That'll be included, but the digital wilds is really about how to have an online offering and how to create it in 90 days, So yeah, I'm really excited about it. I actually love teaching. I love teaching this. And that's kind of been the most surprising because I was like, no, I'm a mystic. But it's like, what's more mystical than being in this online virtual world where you can't see it, taste it, touch it, but it so affects you, we're using it. So I really just had to use these principles of algorithm alchemy to really to teach the kind of course I wanted to teach, right? I can't teach it like anybody else. And for me, it's spiritual. For me, it's mystical. And for me, it's also really practical. And so the digital wild is just an extension of that.
Let me tell you guys listening right now, Ayesha's Instagram is that girl, and it has been that girl, and it will remain that girl. So if you are looking for someone to support you in external expression and embodiment, showing up online in the ways that you've always wanted to, and being able to take aligned action on that, I highly, highly encourage you to explore this offering with her, because I'm telling you, her creative vision and execution is like no other. So I would love to sprinkle my little promotion onto that and just say, I think it needs to be experienced for anyone that's looking to step into deeper expression. Ayesha, thank you so much for being here. I can't believe we're at the end of our time together. And I would love if you could tell people where and how they can connect with you. How can they tap into your gifts and your graces and your offerings? How can they work with you? How can they speak with you? Let the people know.
I always say this at the end of every podcast, and I really like it. All roads lead home. So if you just type in Ayesha Ophelia, you'll wind up at my website. Humanities is the unlearningportal.com. And then I'm just Ayesha Ophelia on IG. But remember a couple of years ago when everyone was making fake accounts big time and trying to get people to do readings?
Big time.
So big time. Maybe you're going to find a bunch of other accounts, but look for Ayesha Ophelia spelled just like that. Ayesha Ophelia. That's my account. You'll find me there. And from there, you can get all the little places of magic that I'm at.
Ayesha, I cannot thank you enough, not only for coming here today to just share your voice and your vision and your presence and your energy, because that itself is a very profoundly felt gift. I really deeply want to thank you for being courageous enough in this lifetime and finding the confidence in yourself to be so embodied so that you can support others in doing the same. To come to the point at which you have come, I know is a lifetime of work. No matter how easily some parts of it may have come, it is a labor of love. And I cannot thank you enough for being who you are in this life, to shine that light for others to follow. And you have been a light to me and continue to be. And I am so grateful for the opportunity to truly sit in sisterhood and giggle and yap and just be here with you in both the joy and the depth of it. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you, Zoe. This was so much fun. You have a beautiful space and it was such an honor.
Well, there you have it, blessed babes. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode. And I would love if we could take a moment to send this week's subject, Ayesha Ophelia, some love, sweetness, and positivity as she continues to evolve and carve pathways through which we may experience our own evolution. If you're interested in being on the podcast, you guys know what to do. Send an email to podcast@zoegreco.com. Connect with me on all socials at the Zoe Greco. And of course, I want to conclude by reminding you that you are important. You matter, and you are perfect exactly as you are. I love you. Your spirit guides love you. Ayesha Ophelia loves you, and the universe loves you. So until next time, keep answering the call of your higher self. Bye, friends.